Professor of Political Science and International Affairs at the American University. Professor, always a pleasure to have you on. We've also had the Republican Party choosing its leader in the Senate. It didn't go to Rick Scott, who people thought Donald Trump probably favored. So the president hasn't got all his own way there in the upper chamber. But how is this cabinet looking to you?
It's just one surprise after another. I mean, it's just amazing to me that the 40 of the 44 cabinet secretaries from the first Trump administration didn't endorse him for this campaign. And so he couldn't even go back, for the most part, to the people who had worked for him before, but had to come up with people he thought would either be loyal or that would appeal to his base, or that he thought could help press his agenda in a way that sort of caught fire. And so we have people who would be generally considered not qualified for the job and against the job or against the institution, names being put forward they're just astonishing. I mean, we've been watching the news the last couple of days, and it's just one surprise after another. And so, some of these won't be confirmed. Some of them won't be able, they'll have to withdraw their nomination. Other ones will they may go through. There's also the possibility of interim appointments during the vacancy. Then that sometimes those stick and sometimes they don't. So those interim appointments can sometimes fill positions. But it's quite clear to me now that Trump isn't picking for competence. He's picking for loyalty and for shock value. And he's trying to reinforce this whole Project 2025, which is about gutting the government, firing people, closing down agencies or parts of agencies in a very dramatic way. And that, in that sense, it feels like revenge. It feels like, all the things he's been stewing about for the last 4 years while he was out of power, he's going to take revenge against when he's back in power.
It's really interesting what you're saying, because when we look at the faces while you're talking about them, one thing that possibly occurs, and you've kind of indicated it, it's not necessarily competence, I would say, but experience. And regarding decision making at an international level, do you get the idea that Trump putting these loyalists in is basically wanting people who will rubber stamp his own ideas? And how dangerous is that? Because how can one or two people, Trump and maybe one of his closest allies, make these decisions about so many different things, when actually those ministers, those cabinet members are supposed to have the expertise to be able to advise the president about the best course of action? Do you get the impression that he wants to make every single important idea himself?
Absolutely, 100%. And the weaker and less experienced the person, hopefully the more loyal they'll be. And I'm sort of tired of people saying, like, we don't know what's coming, Trump's unpredictable. And so, who knows why he's doing this or why he's doing that? No, we saw this during the Trump administration, the first 4 years. He would pick inexperienced, not very competent people, and then, keep them for a while and then fire them and bring on another one who was even less experienced and even less competent. It was never about striving for competence or alternate points of view that would be part of they talk sometimes about a cabinet of rivals who can give opposing points of view or points of view that would be against what the president wants. No, this is entirely about taking weak people who can just carry out the president's orders, and because of their weakness and inexperience, it makes them even more likely to just follow orders. So yes, it's all about Trump having, as much power as possible concentrated in his own person, and not even in his, inner circle at the White House, but really reporting directly to him, in part because they're controversial figures and therefore don't have their own power bases or their own, Washington networks. But are weak and marginal and therefore dependent on him.
Professor, we know it's late for you. Thanks so much for staying awake for us. William Lawrence in Washington.
A pleasure.